Have you ever been at a table full of nits or all boring pros looking at their phone, not talking to anyone? How about playing poker with someone you find annoying, or worse yet, smelly? Well, if you're like me, you take your chance of this happening every time you play a public game, but today, I'm not playing a public game. Today is my first ever Lex O 510 game full of my friends and YouTube subscribers from around the South Florida area. I'm super excited about this game that will be running on a weekly basis. I buy in for $3,000, and the first hand is a wild one. This first hand, I didn't get my phone out in time to record, so a still frame is going to have to do. I straddle on the button for $25, and the small blind does a blind raise to $60. The big blind now re-blind raises to $125. Now, these are not re-straddles. These are just blind raises, meaning that if the action gets back to them, they will not have an option to re-raise pre-flop. It folds to me, and I look down at 5-4 offsuit on the button, $25 invested already, against two blind hands. Now, I could raise and open up the action, try to take down this dead money, or I could call $100 more, knowing that the small blind, who blind raised to begin with, will most likely call for $60 more, and then there won't be an option for the second player who blind raises. So I call for $100 more, the small blind calls $125, and we end up going three ways to our first flop, where the big blind player says he's still blind and hasn't seen his hand, to an 8-9-4 rainbow board, giving me bottom pair. Small blind player checks, big blind player bets out $200, still saying that he's blind, has not seen his cards. Now up against a blind range of hands, bottom pair is still beating a lot of hands that you can get dealt in with. I could raise, I could call. I elect to go with the lower variance route and just make the call, and small blind, who has seen his cards, makes the fold. Turn card's a king, another overcard to my pair, and now the big blind player checks over to me, and I happily check this one back, going to the river, which gives me two pair with a 5. I've got bottom two pair on a board that is really not that scary, but this player has been blind the entire hand and continues to bet blind on the river for $500. My hand is obviously very strong, bottom two pair. If this was a regular hand where my opponent had seen his cards the entire time, I would be tempted to just call versus this bet, but against a player who's completely blind, I think I have to go all in. I mean, he's got $1,500 more. I have two pair. I don't see myself being beat very often on this board. There's no real straights available. I don't know. I think it's kind of close, but versus a blind hand, I think I just have to go for it. Maybe he's got a king under there. Maybe he somehow has a 9 or an 8, and he'll want to hero call me. So I jam all in for $1,500 more, and now my opponent says, well, I've got to look. And he turns over the first card, which is a king. And I think to myself, well, that's a great card. That's a card that will most likely get me paid off, unless he somehow has king 8 or king 9, king 5, or king 4. He then wants to sweat out with the entire table what his second card is, and he slowly pulls it over and flips it over, and it's another king. Oh my God! He was blind the entire hand. It had pocket kings, made top set. I go all in, and obviously he snap calls me, and my very first hand here at this game, I get completely stacked. I did get somewhat of a fishy feeling after this hand. He did say that he was blind the entire hand, and I know that he raised to $125 blind because I saw him raise before he even got cards in front of him. However, I'm not completely sure if he was blind the entire hand, but I'll believe him if he says he was. I don't think the hand plays any different, even if he had seen his cards. Either way, we're down over $2,000. Luckily, one of my good friends, Eric, brought me some Hershey chocolate bars to try to cheer me up, and we get into the next hand. There's a raise to $30. I re-raise next to act to $100 with Jack 10 of diamonds and get cold 4-bet out of the big blind to $400. Not going to fold a suit of Broadway for $400, so I make the call. We're going heads up here in position, 4-bet pot with Jack 10 of diamonds to ace 10-6. My opponent bets out fairly big, and I make a tight fold, but it turns out it was correct when he shows ace king of spades. 25 straddle on, I raise the 75 under the gun. Cutoff player calls 75, button calls 75, and now the small blind re-raises to $250. A very, very small re-raise out of position. A lot of the time, this is a very, very strong play. It means that he wants to raise and build pot, and doesn't want to raise too big, so I put him on some big overpairs, possibly aces, kings, and queens. But with a suited Broadway hand, queen 10 of hearts, I call, and the cutoff player calls, and button player calls. I'm going to tread a little bit cautiously. Definitely could be up against a big pocket pair. And when the flop comes down 10 high, when I see this board, I think to myself, I'm either going to win a big pot or lose a big pot. And especially now when the small blind bets into all these players for $450. Now, this goes right along with my suspicions that he's got a big overpair. If he's got jacks, queens, kings, and aces, he definitely would be wanting to bet this flop. Now, I have top pair. I can't fold just yet. I am still beating a small percentage of hands he could have, like ace-king, ace-queen suited, maybe king-queen suited, possibly pocket nines or pocket eights. I don't really like it, but I can't fold. So I make the call. Cutoff player folds, button player folds. Now we're heads up to the 9 of diamonds on the turn. If my opponent fires out again after I called him on the flop and called his 3-bet, I will be hero folding my top pair. But he now slows down and checks, which I don't think he's doing very often with over pairs, but maybe he is getting a little bit tricky. Maybe he's pot controlling with jacks or queens. I don't see too much point in betting here. So I check back, and the worst card comes in on the river. It's an ace. So now not only are we losing to those overpairs, we're now losing to ace-king and ace-queen. But surprisingly, he checks. I snap check back, and we win. Up against pocket sixes. Queen 10 is good to win my first pot here at Seminole Casino, Coconut Creek.
And the ace comes on the river, they got the ace.
I thought he was slow playing me.
Next up, a raise to 60. I re-raise with pocket nines to $200, and the big blind re-raises me again to $450. This player in the big blind is my friend Eric, who I've known now for a little over 2 years, and I just don't think he's getting out of line here. Out of position, a cold 4-bet. I think he's got a damn monster, but he's giving me a great price to call and set mine. He can have ace-king, he can have aces, kings, and queens. If he does have those big overpairs and I hit a 9, I could stack him and take all his chips and all that candy he's got in front of him. So I make the call. Board is 10 high, not the worst board. No ace, no king, no queen. We are still beating hands like ace-king suited, ace-queen suited. All hands he may 4-bet out of the big blind. When he fires out a $200 continuation bet, I have no option here but to call versus this bet size according to the size of the pot. Turn card 2, and he snap checks over to me. I'm not going to bet. I check back, and the river card is a queen. Now Eric slides out a $400 bet, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not really believing him here. I mean, would he check the turn with overpairs like jacks, queens, kings, and aces? I don't think he would very often. Would he bet this queen river card with pocket jacks? I don't think he would do that either. So when he's betting this sizing, he's saying he's got queens, kings, or aces, or a bluff. He knows that I'm recording for the vlog. He may try to bluff me so that he can show his friends back home. I don't know. It's kind of a tough one. The only bad thing is his bet sizing. $400, so small according to the size of the pot. I think if Eric was bluffing, he would go bigger, something like 700, 1,000, 1,500. I go back and forth. I mean, I'm losing to aces, kings, queens, jacks, pocket tens. I'm really only beating one hand, ace-king. I feel like he's just got me here, so I make the fold with pocket nines. He doesn't show me at the time, but later on told me he had pocket tens for top set. Pretty nice flop, a nice pot going to my friend in seat number 4, and we move on to the next hand. Well, pocket nines aren't the best. Better than pocket nines, though, are pocket aces. Cutoff player makes it 100. Button calls. I re-raise to $400, and both the cutoff and the button player make the call.
Did you see my hit? Yeah. Okay. I saw you looking away. I wasn't sure if you were trying not to see it or not.
The board comes down 10-7-9 rainbow. With pocket aces and a 3-bet pot, out of position multi-way, this is a very bad board. So I check here like I would with basically 100% of the hands that I got here with. Cutoff player, initial raiser, fires out a $500 bet. Button player eventually folds, and the cutoff player is the same player who raised blind earlier and stacked me with pocket kings. He has been giving a ton of action. He could be betting with top pair, could be betting with a set, 2 pair, or a straight. I can't fold to him just yet, so I make the call. We're now heads up to the 5 on the turn. I check over to him. He thinks for a while and then fires out one yellow $1,000 chip, putting me into a pretty interesting spot here with pocket aces. Going back to what I said on the flop, 10-7-9 is a very bad board for pocket aces. Multi-way out of position. I cannot really improve unless I hit an ace on the turn. There's a ton of 2 pairs, all sorts of sets and straights that both of my opponents have, which is why I decided to check call on the flop. Now facing this $1,000 bet versus a very action player, what do? Do we fold? Do we call, or do we just go all in? And I think to myself, well, if he's got me beat here, I'm not going to be folding, so he's just going to make all the money either on the turn or the river. I'm just never going to be letting go of pocket aces against this player, so I think a jam is actually the best option. If he does have top pair with a 10, he'll most likely call. If he's got a pair and a straight draw, if he's got a straight draw, I want to charge him the max for that. And like I said, if he flopped a set or 2 pair or a straight, he's just going to take my money. So I go all in for $3,000 total, $2,000 more. And luckily, we do not get snap called, meaning that pocket aces are good. And after tanking for about 20 seconds, he shakes his head and folds his cards. Aces are going to take down a nice big pot here. We were down over $2,500 to start, and now we have made our way back to a slight profit on the night. Although it's never fun to get in the hole, it is nice to get out of the hole and get into profit zone. Next up, there's a raise to 50, a re-raise to 150, and I'm on the button with pocket sevens. I think this is a hand I can cold call in position. Big blind calls, initial razor calls. We're going 4 ways, 150 each to Jack 10, 7. Bottom set, multi-way, in position. Initial 3-better now bets $350. I go back and forth whether I want to raise now or just call. I think if I raise on this flop, it's just going to look super strong. Can get my opponents to fold out hands that are basically drawing dead against us. Hands like Queen Jack, Ace Jack, King Jack, Ace 10, King 10. I don't really see too much point in raising on a rainbow board, so I just call. Big blind folds, hijack player folds, and now we're heads up to the deuce of spades on the turn. Now bringing in a flush draw. My opponent continues now for $475, and again, I have a decision. Should I call and continue to slow play, or should I spring the trap and put in a raise? I think we want to continue to slow play. I'm pretty sure my opponent will put out another bet on the final card, leaving himself with around $2,000 left, and we can jam all in. Now, depending on the river card will depend on how I play the river. So I call 475, continuing to set the trap, and the final card is a terrible one. It's the Queen of Hearts. Now this brings in pocket queens for a bigger set, and it brings in Ace King for the obvious straight. Now, I'm not sure if my opponent would be playing Ace King like this. I felt like a lot of the time he had something like Jack 10, Ace Jack, or Queens, Kings, and Aces. If he fires out a big bet here, I'm going to be pretty sick to my stomach, but he now slows down and checks to me. Now, I feel like once he bets the flop, bets the turn, and then checks this river, we're just never beat. I don't think he's ever checking a bigger set than mine. I don't think he's ever checking Ace King or King 9 for a straight. So I have a very clear value bet. How much should I bet? I don't want to bet too big. I want to bet a sizing that he can call with his King Queens, with his Aces, with his Kings, maybe with his unbelieving Ace Jack hands. So I make it $650 to go. Not too long thinking for my opponent when he puts in the call. Pocket sevens are good, over $1,500 profit going my way. Cold calling a 3-bet in position, flopping a set and getting paid off. Doesn't get too much better than that. You guys mind scooting down this way, give them
Are you sure you're
I'm just kidding, I'm kidding.
I would. You need it. How many players?
A few of them. Todd, you're in here?
47 players? I know you're moving. 1, 2, 3.
Don't make it fucking 60. Look at, you're slowing down the game.
What do we have?
Four
I'll show you your masseuse.
Okay. She's on the payroll.
Check.
She doesn't even know your name. I call a raise with pocket deuces, go 4 ways to 6, 9, deuce with 2 clubs, bottom set again. When it checks to me, I bet out $100. The button player calls $100, and then the straddle player raises to $400. When the action gets back over to me, we have a decision whether we want to just call this $400 or do we want to put in another raise. It looks like the straddle player's got around $3,000 in his stack, and I think once he raises on this flop, he's going to have some two pairs, going to have some top pairs, and he's also going to have some big draws. Draws like straight draws and flush draws, gut shot straight draws and flush draws, and also the nut flush draw as well. I think in position with a player left to act, we just want to bump this one up again, although it will look super strong. I think this is a spot where we want to put in that rare bet, 3-bet on the flop. I bump it here to $1,200. After I make this raise, I'm expecting the button player to very quickly fold, but he thinks for a while, and I felt like this was somewhat surprising. I mean, he just called $100 on a pretty wet and connected board. I don't expect him to have two pair. He probably had a straight draw or flush draw, and eventually he does fold. Straddle player who raised to 400 folds as well. Maybe I overplayed this one. Maybe I could have gotten a little bit more value if I would have just called, but on a very wet and connected board like this, I'm fine with trying to put more money in the pot with bottom set. Either way, a nice pot being shipped our way. I plan on running this 5-10 game at least once a week at Seminole Casino, Coconut Creek. We've already run 3 games after this one, so if you are interested in playing in this game with me, if you live down here in South Florida, or if you're going to be traveling down here in the future, send me an email at lexopoker@gmail.com, subject title game, or you can send me a message on Twitter at lexopoker1. So send me an email or send me a tweet or direct message. I'll do my best to try to get you guys all in. My goal for this game is to get as many YouTube subscribers as I can in the game so that we can talk, meet, you can make the vlog, maybe you can try to bluff me, and eventually I can take all your money. In all seriousness, this game, this lineup for the first game was awesome. It turned out way better than I expected. Everyone was very friendly. There was a ton of action, a lot of talking, and there are still some big hands left to come. Moving along here, there's a button raised to 30. I've got ace king of clubs in the small blind and re-raised to $150 before the big blind, who hasn't raised much so far this day, re-raises me again. A cold 4-bet to $350. Now, this is a very strong play. This guy is showing a ton of strength here. With that being said, I've got ace-king suited, a very strong hand. I think I just want to see all 5 or 10 cards, depending if we want to run it once or twice. So I decide I'm just going to 5-bet jam all in.
Well, that makes it very obvious what you have. But I've been running so bad, and I have to leave soon. I have to leave.
You want to show me what you have?
Yeah. I don't think I can fold it, but I know exactly what you have.
Wait, say it out loud before, just for...
I believe he has aces. I believe he has aces.
Oh.
I mean, there's just no other, especially with
I don't think you could ever fold that.
I don't think I could, except for the fact that I was talking it up so much, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm all in." So there's
just all in?
No, him.
I could have ace queen.
Yeah, not on any planet I can think of.
You could have pocket deuce.
Yeah. Right now
Don't
you're
give away my
ahead.
strategy.
Right now you're ahead. If you
Jeez.
There's no way it's
Right, either way you're ahead.
There's no way it's
With
anything.
aces or deuces.
Yeah, it's anything other than, and I've missed everything.
This is great commentary. Oh, man.
Who's got a quarter?
Aaron,
He's got the dice.
turn
He's
the
got
cards
dice.
over.
Yeah, so they don't...
Okay.
Oh, God.
If you pick a
God,
red
don't listen to
card, you
this,
call.
God. God, don't listen to this.
If you pick a red card, you call. Black card, you fold. Okay.
Since you already showed it to the vlog, I am almost certain you have it.
Oh my
We're chopping.
God.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
I mean, what can you do? 6.5 hours in and the game is still going strong. I also got myself some table-side Italian food, meatballs, calamari, and some pasta to go. What are those? Some players have left the game and some new players have sat down. There's a raise to 75. I re-raised to 250 on the button with pocket aces. One of these new players in the big blind cold calls my re-raise and the initial raiser folds. Heads up here in position with pocket aces to king 2-4 rainbow. Big blind checks. I bet out 125 and he calls. Turn card's a 3 of clubs, bringing in a flush draw. If I did have some bluffs here that turn some equity with a club draw, hands like Jack 10 of clubs, Queen Jack of clubs, or a hand like Ace Queen. With all those bluffing hands, I would want to bet, so when I do have a very strong hand like aces, I want to bet as well. And I'm going to bet big, $600, trying to make it look like I'm bluffing here. Maybe I'll get a lighter call out of an underpair, and if he has a king, he'll most likely always call, setting up a big bet on the final card. My opponent now thinks for a while, and then completely owns me when he folds king-queen offsuit face up for top pair. It's like he knew I had pocket aces. Wow, what a sick fold there. Kind of kicking myself. I guess I got a little bit too greedy on the turn with that bet size. Maybe if I would have bet smaller, a quarter the size of the pot, he would have most likely called. I don't know. I was getting a little greedy going for the max. Can't complain though. Aces winning another pot, and then just a few hands later, I get dealt in pocket aces again. I raise to 75 in later position, small blind and straddle call, 3 ways to queen, deuce, 6 rainbow. Small blind now leads out for $75 with aces on a very dry board. I just call. Turn card is the 5 of hearts. My opponent bets out $100 now, and I'm going to raise, try to get value from a queen X hand, which is most likely what he has. I make it $600, and he calls. River card is a blank. I don't even remember. He checks for a second time, and now I bet out $1,000 with a single chip. After thinking for about 30 seconds, he matches my bet. Aces are good, and we've been on a rampage these last few hours. Stuck early on, over $3,000, coming back to basically win every single hand we played. We made some sets, got some aces, didn't get paid off one time, but then got paid off another time. We played one more PLO double board bomb pot at the end of the night, where I made a full house on bottom and king high on top, and actually scooped 2 other players for a $7,000 bomb pot going my way. Shortly after this, the game ends up breaking. I'm up heaps on the night. It's late. I'm tired. I end up racking up my chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out. Well, I would say that was a huge success. I was a little bit nervous. I was a little bit stressed going in. I've never done this before. I've never tried to get 10 people together to play a poker game. I didn't know what was going to happen. When you're dealing with a lot of people, you don't know if someone's not going to show up, if someone's going to leave early, if someone's going to show up late, if someone's not going to like the game and want to leave, or maybe a couple people bust out and the game breaks. I had no idea. I was hoping for a good game, and it turned out perfect. We had 10 people to start. Ended up running for a couple hours there, went down to 9-handed, incorporated some PLO double board bomb pots, put in some straddles. It was an awesome game. I mean, I never really get to do this. I never get to really play a game where I like and enjoy and know the name of every single person at the table. If I go play in Vegas or Texas or LA or other places in Florida or, you know, MGM National Harbor, wherever I play, a lot of the time when I sit down at the table, I don't know anybody. Maybe I know a couple people. I don't know their names. I don't know what they do. I don't know about their kids. I don't know their occupation. So it's kind of hard to have that camaraderie. It kind of makes the game a little bit more like robot controlled. But when you're in a game where you know every single person, they know you, you know them, you know their names, you can talk, laugh, joke. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool, and I'm really glad I was able to put this game together. Kind of had a swingy night, to be honest. I was down $4,000 right off the bat. Got stacked there, 2 pair versus a set. Kind of funny because I put this game together and then I'm down $4,000, but then I ended up clawing back, got aces 3 times, made a couple sets, won some PLO double board bomb pots, and cashed out for over $14,000. So I went from 3K, my second buy-in from 3K up to 14K. It's 2:30 right now, so the game started at 6. It was still going when I left. They were still going in there after 8.5 hours. So I would say that is a huge success. Ended up profiting $5,700 on the night. Big thanks to Seminole Casino Coconut Creek, the poker room, the manager, the staff, the dealers, the waitresses, everybody. It was a great game. They treated us like we Basically treated us great, you know, gave us basically anything we needed. I ended up eating at the Italian restaurant, which I have a hard time pronouncing the name, but the name right here, and I'm still full after like 4 hours. I got pasta, I got meatballs, I got calamari, I got tiramisu, I got mozzarella sticks. I went at it. Got some chocolate too, it was crazy. All in all, great night, 10 out of 10. I'm sweating though. You might be able to see this. It's so humid here in South Florida. We just had a bunch of flooding. Like some areas got like 10 inches of rain in a day or so. And it's just like the windows are fogged up. It's so humid. I'm out here sweating. So I got to get into some AC. I got to let my dogs out. I got to get some sleep. And hope you guys enjoy this one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you.